We classify a mass shooting as a single incident in which 4 or more people are shot. Many of these incidents weren't widely covered, so the amount of information we can report will vary broadly. The first mass shooting for our third episode is the 13th mass shooting in 2020, and the second mass shooting to occur on Sunday, January 19th. We're going back to the Show Me State, or Missouri, and into Kansas City, which has a population of just over 500,000, making it the most populated city in the state. At around 11:30 p.m., revelers were queuing to get into the 9 Ultra Lounge Bar, located at 4802 Noland Road. Spirits were high due to the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Tennessee Titans and advancing to the Super Bowl. The event being held at the bar had been advertised as a celebration of this football game and had been fully sold out. The owner of the bar is former Chiefs player Alfonso Hodge, who played from 2005 to 2006 as a quarterback. Jaron Swift, 29, was in the queue to get into the bar. He was refused entry by one of the bouncers. It's unknown why. He was then involved in some type of altercation and went to his car to retrieve weapons. Chaos unfolded as Swift started indiscriminately firing at people still in line. People scattered in every direction, some fleeing on foot and others fleeing in vehicles. 16 people were shot by Swift before he was fatally taken out by an armed security guard. Kansas City police, who had been at the location just a few minutes before the incident, returned immediately. On arriving at the scene, they discovered the body of Raven A. Parks, 25, and the 15 wounded people that had also been shot by Swift. The injured revelers received treatment at the scene and were all transported to local area hospitals. Centerpoint Medical Center confirmed that it had treated 7 patients from the shooting. Thankfully, all 15 of the other victims survived. Malika Collins was waiting in line with her cousin when Swift started shooting. Not knowing where the shots were coming from, Malika and her cousin ran inside the club to escape, and that's when she realized she'd been shot. Malika's mother, Natasha King, said her daughter was recovering well in hospital, considering what had happened to her. She was shot 3 times, one in the arm, in the stomach, and in her side. Natasha then went on to say, "I know there was a video showing a gentleman carrying a young lady. That was my daughter, and that was her cousin getting out of there. They were all just trying to have a nice time because the Chiefs won and everybody was just trying to celebrate in the city. To have that happen, I'm just sad." Initially, Natasha was angry towards Swift, but then reflected on how hatred won't solve anything. His cowardly actions did cause him to lose his life as well. He did cause a lot of pain. He caused a lot of families pain. I just pray that everybody finds some peace, because that's what we need. We need more love out there. Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas reacted to the shooting by saying, "My thoughts are with the families and friends of those whose lives were lost or impacted by last night's mass shooting." He also said, "If we don't keep fighting, if we don't think we can make some sort of change, we will see moments like this time and again, even on days that should be euphoric here in Kansas City." Jackson County Prosecutor Jean Peters Baker said, "It's hard to stand here and talk about this kind of tragedy on really one of the best days Kansas City has had in a long time." The 9 Ultra Lounge bar was known to police. Shooting events had been reported there previously and have taken place since. Since the shooting, owner Alfonso Hodge explained how he's met with Kansas City regulated industries, the fire department, and the health department on what he can do to make things better. He detailed how he's implemented an enhanced security system with more cameras on the inside and the outside of the club, and every patron will be scanned as they enter the club. Hodge also increased the security at the club by having 2 armed guards at the doors and 8 armed guards patrolling the lot. The shooter, Jerron Swift, had just gotten off probation after a felony conviction. He was previously convicted for unlawful use of a weapon and felony drug possession in 2015. The conviction meant that Swift could not legally own a gun. Swift picked up another gun charge in 2016, but the Jackson County judge denied the prosecutor's motion to revoke his bond. Raven A. Parks, the woman killed, was in the process of leaving the bar when she was shot. Raven was texting family members as she was walking out. Tamala Smith, Raven's cousin, said, "She was walking out and just walked into the midst of it. It's senseless violence," Smith said. "Something as mediocre as not being allowed into a club will make you that mad, where you would go get a gun and shoot 16 people, and one of them lost their life. And she was somebody's mother. She was somebody's granddaughter. She was somebody's daughter. She was somebody's great-granddaughter. And now her life is taken. And she was a beautiful, beautiful woman. And now she's gone." Raven's friend, Carly Miller, said, "She had the most beautiful smile ever. She was so funny. You just love being around her. It is very heartbreaking for me, it really is, for this to happen. And this is the reason why I moved out of town. It's sad. I've lost so many friends along the way. You guys have to stop. The violence has to stop." Loved ones said that Raven dedicated her life to helping others. She was a home health care provider, mother to a young daughter, and guardian to her teen sister. Raven A. Parks was laid to rest on Saturday, February 1st, at the Serenity Funeral Home. Mass shooting number 14 is the 3rd mass shooting to occur on Sunday, January 19th, and the 2nd mass shooting to occur in the Lone Star State of Texas. San Antonio is the location which has a population of 2.6 million. A concert was being held with around 30 people inside a bar called the Ventura, located on the 1000 block of Avenue B on the Museum Reach portion of the San Antonio River. A since-deleted Facebook post advertised the event as Living the Dream, a showcase featuring more than 20 performers. At around 8 p.m., an argument broke out between a group of individuals, and one person pulled out a gun and started shooting. Responding to the 911 call for the incident, the San Antonio Police Department arrived on scene, where they discovered 7 wounded people that had been shot. 6 of the victims were taken to a nearby hospital, but unfortunately, Robert Martinez, 21, had succumbed to his injuries inside the club. Robert was an aspiring rapper who was performing on stage that night. His mother, Mary Contreras, was in attendance at the time of the shooting. Hearing gunshots after her son's performance, she rushed over to him. I grabbed him, put him in my arms, and I just wanted him to fight. It happened so fast. By the time I even got back to my son, he was taking his last breaths. Robert's younger brother, Ernesto Contreras, was also a victim in the shooting, being shot in his leg. Thankfully, he survived. Ernesto said of his brother, "They tore my heart out. Robert was my heart." Alejandro Alex Robles, 25, one of the 6 victims transported to hospital, was shot in his back and unfortunately died shortly after arriving. Described as a giving person, Alex had gone to Ventura with his wife to support a childhood friend who was performing that night. Alex's father, James Huff, said their son was performing, and so he went with that family in support of his performance. For my grandson, who's 5, and his mother, it's going to change their life drastically. James explains how his son was raised to be a blessing, and that's how they'll remember him. He helped the family anytime he could, and would look for the opportunities to help us, but he would help strangers. And I mean, if he saw someone broke down, he would stop and help them. He'd go through Starbucks and buy the drink for the person behind them. Gets to be a blessing as he drove off. Alex left behind a wife and 5-year-old son. One of the other victims, Gloria Davila, 46, was shot in the hip and survived. Gloria was at the bar with her family members to see her 19-year-old son perform. Her son was the friend of Alex Robles. She explains how at first, the sound of gunfire was mistaken as part of the music, but then panic set in and people began running. She said, "There's so much chaos. It was nothing but pow, pow, just bang, bang, bang. I felt a pain on my left side. It intensified." Gloria applied pressure to her wound while family members tried to help Alex. She said, "I stared at the ceiling and all I could hear was a lady in back of me crying for her son. She was saying, 'Please, someone save my son, save my son.'" The lady she was hearing was Robert Martinez's mom, Mary Contreras. Alex Robles was like a son to Gloria. He grew up with her son. She said, "I remember lying there saying, 'Alex, talk to me. Say something.' Gloria explains how Alex was a selfless human, a devoted father and husband. I want to make sure Alex is remembered in a good way because he was such an amazing person. He would give you the shirt off his back if he knew you needed one. He would leave himself penniless if he knew you really needed something. He was genuinely an amazing person. Thankfully, the 3 other victims who had been transported to hospital survived. The Ventura released a statement about the shooting. There are no words to describe how completely devastated we are by the events that took place at Ventura on Sunday. Our hearts and prayers are with the families of those who lost loved ones and those who were injured and affected by this senseless act of violence. The members of our staff are shaken and in a mixed state of disbelief and grief. Ventura has always been a place of community and inclusion. We have been honored to be one of the foremost homes to local music and musicians of San Antonio. We cannot understand, nor could we have ever imagined this terrible tragedy that took place in our establishment. Thank you to all those who have reached out to us to show love and support for us in this difficult time. The future of Ventura will involve much recovery and healing, not only for ourselves, but for the friends and family who are part of our community. The family of Robert Martinez will be holding a vigil Wednesday, January 22nd here at Ventura. We will also be posting the GoFundMe pages for the families of Robert Martinez and Alejandro Robles. Please donate anything you can to show your support. On Monday afternoon, the day after the shooting, Kiernan Williams, 19, was arrested without incident at a home on Zarzamora Street and charged with capital murder. While being taken into custody, Williams promoted his Instagram account saying to reporters, "Don't worry about me, I'm gonna be all right. Y'all gotta follow me on Instagram." He then adds that he's an upcoming artist. Williams had also been scheduled to perform at the event. According to people that witnessed the shooting, he and Robert Martinez had bumped into each other and exchanged words before Williams pulled out a gun, shooting Robert and continuing to fire into the crowded venue. After his arrest, he gained 8,000 new subscribers. Williams had previously been arrested in 2017, where he pleaded no contest to a charge of assault on a public servant causing bodily injury. He was jailed multiple times for parole violations until being released from the state prison system in August 2019. Williams' Instagram account featured multiple photos of himself singing while holding up a gun. Due to the high-profile charge, Williams was separated from other inmates and was housed with others charged with similar crimes. During an afternoon press conference following the arrest of Williams, Police Chief William McManus confirmed that Williams knew the victims with whom the initial altercation had started prior to the shooting. In regards to the safety of the Mission Reach area of the Riverwalk, he said, "The Riverwalk is safe, always has been, always will be." On Wednesday, January 22nd, dozens of people attended the Ventura Bar for a vigil to remember Robert Martinez. Shortly after entering the building, Robert Martinez's mother, Mary, cried out, "I didn't change my life to bury my son." At the vigil, she shared memories of Robert. He had a big heart. He loved everybody. He didn't care if anybody did him wrong, talked about him wrong. He still loved you. He forgave everyone. Mary went on to say that Williams has shown no remorse, and she hopes he isn't released from custody. It breaks my heart, but as for forgiving, I mean, that's what we're here to do, right? To forgive. But I won't forget. And I feel like he does not deserve to get out and be free. He deserves whatever punishment they give him. He doesn't belong out there. Robert's grandmother, Linda Martinez, said she is still in shock. I will never, ever forget this. I feel like I'm in a nightmare. I can't believe I'm still here right now. He took something out of me. Half of my heart is gone. Robert's aunt, Irene Avine, explained how Robert planned to use his payout from the show to buy his mother dinner. He was such a good kid. He texted my sister that he was going to take her to eat this Friday, with the money he was going to make rapping. We're very hurt about this, and our hearts are shattered because of this other guy that didn't care about life or something. He just comes in and just shoots the innocent people. Michael Carrillo, owner of Ventura, said the bar has been a place where young musicians showcase their talent. We've never had an armed guard here because that's not the kind of place we are. It was completely unexpected. On Thursday, July 20th, 2023, at the Bexar County Jail, a deputy was conducting face-to-face observation checks at 11:39 p.m. when he saw inmate Kiernan Williams, who was now 23, attempting suicide. The deputy immediately called for an emergency code and entered the cell to perform life-saving measures. Facility medical staff and the San Antonio Fire Department came to assist, but Williams was pronounced dead at 12:09 p.m. Mass shooting number 15 happened on Wednesday, the 22nd of January in Washington, also known as the Evergreen State. We go to Seattle, which has a population of 755,000, making it the state's largest city. At around 5 p.m., authorities began receiving calls of multiple gunshot victims around the McDonald's located at 1530 3rd Avenue. The incident took place as police were investigating another nearby shooting. 45 units were dispatched to the scene. The area in which the shooting occurred was in one of the busiest parts in downtown Seattle during one of the busiest times of day. The sidewalks were packed with bus commuters and the street was lined with cars. The incident occurred when two gang members and a member of a rival gang got into a dispute and started firing at each other. On arriving at the scene, police discovered one person deceased and 7 injured. One of the 7 injured was the rival gang member. Tanya Jackson, 50, was struck and killed as she was going about her day. Tanya was a resident of the A.L. Humphrey House, a group housing facility in Seattle's Belltown neighborhood. Kelly Larson is the Chief Program Officer for Plymouth Housing, a facility for people who suffer from physical and/or mental health conditions that make finding and maintaining traditional housing on their own challenging. She remembered Tanya Jackson as always being joyful. She had a very rich life. Cindy Morningstar was just feet away from Tanya while on her way to visit a friend when she was struck by 4 bullets, including one to her stomach. Cindy, who was in a wheelchair at the time of the shooting, had a small dog on her lap when the bullets struck her. After more than 15 surgeries, 2 plates in her arm, and now needing to use a colostomy bag, Cindy survived the shooting, but continues to feel pain. 9-year-old Bremerton boy, Judah, was on his way back to the ferry terminal with his family after a day trip to the Pacific Science Center. Judah, whose family did not want his last name to be disclosed, suffered a fractured femur as he was struck by a bullet and collapsed near a lamppost. A close family friend of Judah said his left femur is shattered, but he is remarkably poised and positive. He has never cried once. A man on his way to a pickup basketball game, 2 men who worked for Amazon on their way home from work, and 1 other man were also struck by bullets. Jamel Jackson, the rival gang member, had also been shot and injured in the shooting. All injured people were transported to Harborview Medical Center. Citywide text messages were sent out to warn people to avoid the area and urged people to call the tip line with any information. After the incident, police advised the public to stay away from the area as they hunted for the suspects. A mobile command unit and extra officers were placed on the block as homicide detectives and gang units investigated the incident. Being as it was such a busy area, there were many witnesses to the shooting. Samantha Cook, 40, said she was refilling her transit car at a nearby station when she heard gunfire. I was on the first set of escalators. There were a lot of gunshots that started going off, maybe 10 or 11. It was just rapid fire. Tyler Parsons was working near the scene when he saw people drop to the ground. Terrifying. It's so close, he said. Douglas Converse said, I was right there. I was about 10 feet away from going down into the light rail and I heard a pop, 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 and about a dozen shots. And I just saw people jumping behind cars and jumping behind anywhere they could hide. Lofi Lungwai said, we saw a dead body and then we saw a gunshot in the window. Angela Maria Favre, who lives nearby, said, I knew it wasn't fireworks, and then I started screaming. A witness who would only give his name as Wynn said, we heard what sounded like a bunch of automatic weapon fire. Just 30 to 40 shots. Just ba, bam, bam, ba. We saw people running up the sidewalk towards the McDonald's and hiding around the corner. A man named Bill was in a nearby office and heard gunfire before seeing as many as 100 people running to take cover. It was sheer panic. I've never seen anything like it. Many people took out their cell phones and filmed the aftermath of the shooting. Others say they saw at least one of the shooters run into the nearby light rail tunnel to get away. People who worked in the area were tired of all the violence. The department was criticized by residents and business leaders who said that police weren't doing enough to curtail crime in the area. Shai Dukes said, to see all this happening on, like, a Wednesday night, it's like, what else can go on? I'm just sick of all this. I'm so sick of all this violence. A spokesperson for the Downtown Seattle Association said in a statement, Our hearts go out to the victims of tonight's shooting in downtown Seattle, as we commend the Seattle Police and Fire Departments for their swift response to this tragedy. Criminal activity around 3rd and Pine has been persistent for far too long, and too often has led to violence and innocent lives lost. The heart of our city should feel safe and welcoming for all who live, work, and visit here. We call on public officials to devote the resources necessary to improve safety in downtown and take back 3rd Avenue from the criminals who have laid claim to it. On behalf of the residents, small business owners, employers, and visitors, we say enough is enough. Mayor Jenny Durkin released a statement saying, "Early this evening, a dispute between individuals in our downtown core escalated into gunfire. As a result, a number of people were hit, and one person died. We mourn a tragedy like this wherever it occurs. No one should face such violence, and it impacts all of us when it occurs in the heart of our city. I extend my support and that of our city to the victims and their families. I also want to express my profound gratitude to our first responders who worked quickly to help those who needed it. The men and women of the Seattle Police Department and the Seattle Fire Department work every day to keep our city safe. I am also grateful to our partners at the King County Sheriff's Office for their support during this incident." Following the incident, Bloodworks was asking for people to donate blood, as the shooting had already taxed a dangerously low inventory in the region. Police Chief Carmen Best said, "Even one incident of gun violence is one too many. We will relentlessly investigate tonight's shooting at 3rd and Pine until all those responsible are brought to justice. In the meantime, expect to see police officers on this block until further notice." Jamel Linenell Jackson, 21, was arrested after he was released from Harborview Medical Center. He was identified after gang unit detectives reviewed video surveillance footage from the shooting scene. Chief Best said, "They knew him to be a felon, and they knew he cannot be in possession of a firearm, which he had in his hand in the video. So they went up to Harborview and located this person and arrested him. He was charged with a firearms violation in connection with the shooting for possessing a gun at the scene. His bail was set at $50,000. Jackson admitted to having a gun during the shooting. This was confirmed with video evidence that showed him with a gun in his hand. Jackson's previous criminal history includes robbery convictions, a misdemeanor harassment conviction, and 2 prior convictions for unlawful handgun possession. In a 2017 guilty plea, Jackson said he was not a gang member. Police disputed this, saying he was a known gang member. In that case, Jackson had been arrested outside the same McDonald's as the shooting occurred, and prosecutors wrote that he is likely to commit a violent offense. The next day, Police Chief Carmen Best said, "A tremendous amount of physical and digital evidence, including multiple shell casings from 3 different caliber of firearms, had been recovered overnight." Marquise Latrell Tolbert, 24, and William Ray Tolliver, also 24, were identified as the other 2 shooters involved in the incident. Police said both are armed and dangerous as the manhunt began. Police described Tolbert as 6'1", 200 pounds, and Tolliver as 6 feet, 145 pounds. They asked for anyone who sees them or knows their whereabouts to call 911. They also said that both men had been arrested numerous times, one over 50 times, and the other over 25. Tolbert and Tolliver were arrested in Las Vegas 9 days later. Jamel Linenell Jackson pleaded guilty to second-degree unlawful possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to 16 months in jail, but by that time he had already served 576 days, around 19 months in custody, and was released. Tolbert and Tolliver went to trial. They were co-defendants but tried separately because an expert witness hired by Tolliver's defense team wasn't available to testify. Both were charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 6 counts of first-degree assault, with each carrying a firearms enhancement. Tolbert's trial began at the Kings County Superior Court. The trial started and 17 jurors were told they will get a crash course on Seattle gang culture as the trial progresses. In her opening statement, Senior Deputy Prosecutor Brandy Gevers stated, "This was not a random act of violence. This was a targeted shooting, and all but one of the victims were collateral damage." Gevers said that Tolbert and Tolliver, who are longtime friends and members of the Hoover Gang, with sets of cliques in South and West Seattle, met up downtown to seek out Jamel Jackson of the rival Deuces Eights, a Central District gang, because Jackson had written a Facebook post 2 days earlier mocking a low-profile gang member who was a friend of Tolbert's. Defense attorney Emily Goss countered that Tolbert and Tolliver went downtown for fun and friendship and were accosted by Jackson, who, she said, was a true instigator of the 6-second-long gunfight that sent pedestrians running for cover. She said police detectives rushed to judgment, pointing Jackson as the victim, before reviewing all the video evidence or interviewing the case's many witnesses. Gauze said, "Marquise Tolbert was not the first to shoot. He wasn't the second to shoot, and when he did so, it was only because he was trying to save his life." She contended that her client fired 10 rounds from his .38 caliber handgun in self-defense. Jurors were shown video clips of the shooting, photos from the crime scene, and images of Tolbert and Tolliver flashing gang signs in Las Vegas where they had been arrested. Prosecutor Gevers showed jurors a photo of Tolbert purchasing an extended magazine at Rainier Arms, a gun shop in Auburn, 4 hours before the shooting. The magazine doubled the capacity of Tolbert's handgun from 6 bullets to 12. The 2 co-defendants called each other repeatedly over the next 2 hours before they met up in downtown Seattle. They arrived on 3rd Avenue and Pine Street a little after 4 p.m. Gunfire erupted less than an hour later. Following his arrest, Tolbert claimed to police that he hadn't been at the scene and that it was a case of mistaken identity. Gevers said video evidence shows Tolbert and Tolliver were tipped off that Jackson was inside the McDonald's, his regular haunt. Gauze, however, said it was Jackson who was told his rivals were in the area. Gevers said Tolliver was the first to pull his gun and fire at Jackson, but Gauze said Jackson was the one who aggressively confronted the co-defendants and brandished his gun before Tolliver freaked out and fired the first shot at Jackson. Gevers said that Jackson got off 5 rounds from his 9mm handgun as he ran east on Pine, and that the co-defendants, who ran south on 3rd, blindly fired their handguns over their shoulders after Jackson was no longer in sight, indiscriminately shooting 6 people on the crowded sidewalk. Gauze said Tolbert began firing after a couple of Jackson's bullets whizzed by him, twice striking a metro bus, with a third round ricocheting off the pavement. Based on the shell casings found at the scene, Tolbert fired 10 rounds, Tolliver fired 9, and Jackson fired at least 5. Video evidence showed Tanya Jackson crossing 3rd Avenue before collapsing outside the McDonald's where she died. Cindy Morningstar was called as a witness. She told jurors how she is still dealing with many issues from her injuries because of the shooting. She said it has forever changed her life. Body camera footage from officers who responded to the mass shooting captured first responders working to save the life of Cindy. Cindy said, "And then all of a sudden I heard boom, and it got me. I felt some burning on the side of me a little bit." Marquise Tolbert burst into tears after deliberations as Supreme Court Judge Melissa Young read the jurors' verdict of not guilty. Outside the courtroom, Gauze was critical of the Seattle Police Department. She said, "They didn't really care to find out what happened. They just stopped investigating once they had the video and identified the shooters." She said testimony at trial showed the lead detective didn't analyze all the video evidence from that night, and the video showed Jamel Jackson came out and initiated the whole thing. After Tolbert was found not guilty, he pleaded guilty to first-degree unlawful possession of a firearm, a charge bifurcated from the main trial, because it would have required disclosing his past felony convictions to the jury to prove he couldn't legally possess a gun. He was expected to be sentenced with time already served, as he had been held for almost 3 years since the shooting up until his not guilty verdict on September 17, 2022. A few months later, he was taken back into custody after allegedly threatening someone with a gun. On June 2, 2023, Marquise Tolbert pleaded guilty to amended charges of second-degree manslaughter, third-degree assault, and second-degree unlawful possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Good boy.